Welcome to the Restaurant Operator Podcast. I'm your host, Shara Kanzler, the publisher of Fast Casual. And as you can see, we are in Vegas today at ICSC talking about all things real estate, because as we all know that it does not matter how good your food is if your restaurant's in the wrong place. Luckily, my guest today, Ebere, knows all about that and is here to give us some tips on research that you found from being with CBRE. So can you give us a little background of what you do for them, and then we'll launch right into the meat.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me, Shara. Like you said, my name is Ebere Anokute. I am the America's Head of Retail Research at CBRE, and in that role, I partner very closely with our retail leasing business as well as the investor services business too, to tell the real estate story to our clients, and I do that through research reports, some podcasts, interviews like this, and just any way I can demystify what's happening on the data side for my business counterparts.
So speaking of the data that's come out recently, we've seen that the retail is kind of low availability. So how is that changing how restaurants are trying to negotiate their leases and give
Definitely,
it to us?
yeah. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Availability is at historic lows. We have been quoting that in our historical data set, these are the lowest availability levels that we've seen in 20 years, So that has a lot to do with the constraint on supply that we're seeing.
Okay.
There hasn't been a lot of retail development in the last 20 years pretty much, and there isn't really too much speculative on the horizon. So we expect that that's going to keep fundamentals in this same place for a while. It's difficult to talk about it. In my role, I have to sort of speak to both sides of the equation, right?
Yeah.
So for the landlords, that definitely is a bit of a positive, right? Because it
Sure.
means that they have a little bit more leverage in these negotiations. And then obviously on the occupier side, it does mean that there will be more competition for the space that's still available. There's also a bit of a nuance as far as the available space that is on the market. Not all of it is what we call competitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is sort of outdated, bordering on obsolete, frankly. And so for that reason, the actual space that an operator would want to go into, there's even less of that. So as a result, definitely restaurant operators can expect to see some tighter sort of deal terms in that regard. I'm sure that the length of the deals is probably going to be a little bit shorter, so that these landlords can hopefully capitalize on some rent growth that they expect to see in the next couple of years due to the constraint on supply pushing up pricing.
Is part of the problem that people aren't in offices as much anymore as well, or are you seeing that?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I would say that we've really, the office sort of discussion has gotten to a place where I think it's really more sophisticated and there's more of a focus on hybrid, but I don't think that that's really diminishing the value of the office, and that's being reflected in the leasing volumes on
Okay.
the office side.
So people are still working in the offices and going
They
into
are.
the urban areas.
And they're going to the restaurants that are located by their office as well as the ones that are located by their homes, in the suburbs or wherever else they live. So I don't think that that's been having as much of a hindrance on retail leasing as we might have thought maybe 2 years ago.
Right. So we are also seeing that service-oriented businesses are doing better. So in our world, restaurants, that's great news for us.
Right.
But is that driving up the prices as well with the competitiveness with the restaurant industry?
It could be. When it comes to those service-oriented businesses, I don't know that they're always necessarily competing for the same space as restaurants. I feel like restaurants tend to be a little bit larger in their footprint, depending on the type of restaurant, than maybe like a barber or a nail salon or something like
Sure.
that. I do think that they are contributing to higher occupancy levels at these centers, which definitely then gives the landlords more leverage to raise the rent. So there definitely is some interplay there, but I don't see those two categories like restaurants and other service tenants being in direct competition with one another.
With all of the changes that we've seen, with all the technology coming, and we're so reliant now on third party and catering and delivery, is that changing the specs that restaurant operators are needing? Because I feel like some of them they don't need as big of a space. Maybe they're not concentrated on dining in.
Sure. Yeah, there definitely, I think, has been a lot of advent with regard to those third-party operators and the way that it impacts the restaurant's ability to cater to their consumers, right? I think we saw that coming out of the pandemic, right? There was no ability to go dine in these restaurants, and so all the ones who wanted to stay in business had to figure out a way to shift and be nimble. I think that now we're at a place where there still is a lot of demand demand for in-person dining experiences, and the ability to experience these restaurants through third-party delivery and other situations only really benefits the restaurants themselves, right? That gives consumers more of an opportunity to cater to patronize these restaurants and to get their favorite meals, whenever they want to, and be able to enjoy them wherever they want to.
Okay. Last question, and it has to be on AI because everybody's obsessed with that. So I can't let you go without that. But how are you seeing restaurateurs use AI to help find the perfect site, or are we there yet?
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Okay.
I think there's definitely still a ways to go with regard to specific use cases of AI applicability when it comes to site selection and things like that. What we are seeing is some improved efficiencies on the internal side, right?
Okay.
So whether it is the ability to seat people more efficiently, or even, again, like more intelligent analysis of the meals or the certain menu items that are selling the best, and so that catering or trickling down to procurement and what they need to be focusing on buying. I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the AI applicability these days.
What do you think? I know you have experience with Warby Parker doing data, so what do you think that the restaurant industry, from a data point of view, needs to take in consideration?
Yeah, I think the restaurant industry, from a data point of view, I mean, it's interesting actually, because I think less on the data side and more so in an intangible sense like co-tenancy. I think that is what I learned really is a big driver of success for a lot of retailers. It's who you're around and what those retailers are doing to drive repeat foot traffic. Even if someone going to one of those retailers near you isn't coming to your restaurant every day, the fact that they see the restaurant when they go to that shopping center, that familiarity definitely breeds some level of loyalty in the long term. So that it's less data focused and more intangible, like the impact of co-tenancy and understanding the dynamics of the center overall and how it's merchandised and where you fit into that merchandising plan really is a real indicator of success.
Right, and what we've found too is that just because if you're a chicken restaurant, if there's another chicken restaurant, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad place for you to be.
Sure. I mean, yeah, exactly, right? That maybe then it's like, that customer wants to go for that sort of item, right? So being located nearby, something like a restaurant or like food is so, what's the word? Almost capricious, right? It's really based on how you feel that day, that time, at that moment, right? So maybe today I want this square chicken. I might not be in the mood for that tomorrow, you know? And so if I know that there's another type nearby, I'm going to go there. And that's definitely, I think, a bargaining chip that these operators can use in their negotiations with the landlord, right? They're driving this repeat foot traffic. People are coming for these menu items. And so that's a reason why they should want to have these operators at their centers.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your insights. And if our listeners want to get more information, your reports, where can they find that?
Definitely. You can find more information on our reports at cbre.com/insights. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn as well as CBRE Retail on LinkedIn. Our team does a great job of posting everything that we produce on there as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a restaurant operator